Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Here today with a special guest, my man Willy G. How's it going, my man?
I'm good, brother. How about you, man?
I've been pretty good. As you guys can see, my camera quality probably looks a little bit better than last week. I've had enough. I've had this laptop camera going for a couple of years now. I just went out. I sucked it up. I got a USB or not a USB, like a face cam USB thing. So now shouldn't have that problem anymore. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff that we're gonna talk about today. Just had to get that off first of all, but we could start off talking about, I guess, like the big major news that happened over the past week. Probably a little forgotten now because it happened mainly earlier, like since the last episode dropped, the first few days. But Kyrie Irving, getting a 5 game suspension. Obviously, by now we all know that thing that he retweeted, and at the minimum, it's a 5 game suspension. But the Nets have a lot of things like laid out for him to do before he can come back on the court. So I guess what I'll ask you is, do you think maybe the Nets, this is maybe too much that they're giving him to do, maybe not enough? And where do you see Kyrie's future with the Nets or even in the NBA?
Yeah, so I've honestly been a little bit back and forth, on the subject, specifically on what the Nets are requiring, for Kyrie to get back with the team. I think an apology would have been enough. I know he did his written apology, maybe something in person or a press conference, right? I know he was getting grilled a lot by some reporters, but maybe just holding a press conference in Brooklyn, with the media and doing an apology first and then opening up to any questions and just answering the questions sincere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it does sound like that doesn't sound, but it does seem like the Nets are kind of rubbing it in a way, almost to the point that it's almost humiliating him, like making an example of him, which by all means, Kyrie has made some bad decisions, has caused probably that feel in the locker room, right? We hear that
Mm-hmm.
term a lot when a player is destroying the locker room internally. So I'm not saying he deserves it, but it definitely does seem like the Nets are trying to make an example of him, maybe humiliate him even a bit, which we're kind of crossing that line also, right? Where what Kyrie tweeted was totally disrespectful, and now the Nets are giving him that same, disrespect of, well, we're going to make an example of you, we're going to humiliate you, and you can't even come back to, I don't even know if you can practice or not, but you can't even come back to the facilities until you meet these, 5, 6 certain requirements that they're making him do.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I think I don't remember who said it because I was looking at a few things since then, but someone said something like how, in a way, they're kind of like taking away Kyrie's dignity. And I'm not here to, support or anything like that, like what Kyrie did and like retweeting that, because I think it was kind of careless. It was kind of stupid. I think it was JJ Watt who came out and said something a while ago, like you should proofread a tweet almost like what, like 90 times before you actually submit it or something like that, or retweet, or like
Mm.
before you make those decisions, because it could just take the click of a button before like you end up, it detriments your career as a pro athlete or even just in general. But I mean, now it's like he has a 5 game suspension. It seems like kind of Joe Tsai is a little bit done with him. Just like all the things they laid out for him. And like, I mean, anyone could argue, I guess, like maybe it was too much. Like, after he apologized, granted, they probably would have liked him to apologize before they suspended him for 5 games. I think that was probably the big thing. But I don't know. I think it's just like a whole messy situation right now. And I think in terms of like his future, like, I mean, he's a good enough player that he's probably, some team is probably still going to be willing to take him on like after this season when he's a free agent. He'll most likely still play sometime this season with the Nets as well.
Mhm.
But like, it's not like, if you remember like the Myers Leonard thing a few years ago, like, I mean, it's different because Myers Leonard probably isn't that quality of player. Like, he's kind of always been a role player. Whereas like Kyrie
Mhm.
Irving, it's like he's talent wise, like you could argue top 15, top 20, maybe even better, or somewhere around there, like in the league. So I don't know. That's just what I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hamper Kyrie's career long term. It's probably going to be, a messy year. That relationship with the Nets is probably tarnished. I don't think he's going to come back to Brooklyn after this season. I already had my doubts with him, even coming back before this whole drama happened. But you're right. I mean, Kyrie is top 15, top 20 player, like you said, all time. Probably the greatest ball handler we've ever seen. So I don't think it's going to be something that a team is going to shy away from. Maybe there's going to be a certain requirement in his contract. Not even sure if this is allowed with the CBA and the National Basketball Players Association union. Sorry, but maybe they're going to hold his press conferences very limited, and maybe just certain topics that he can touch if he does go to another team. Because Kyrie, I respect his personal beliefs, right? But he has definitely been a headache, right? So where do teams start to draw the line? I don't think anywhere close to that with Kyrie being in his prime. Again, he's still a top three player, at least point guard in the NBA right now. He's still a big box office ticket, right? So he's done with Brooklyn and Brooklyn's done with him, but he's still going to be in the NBA. He's not going to be like Shaq says. He's not going to be in the Shanghai Sharks next season. We know that for sure. But I do think his future with Brooklyn's done.
Yeah, shout out. I will shout out as well Dwight Howard, who just signed, I believe, in Taiwan today. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree though with you on that one. But we can move on here though. We could talk about some of the recent injuries that could be affecting some of these playoff teams this year. So in terms of starting with the Sixers, James Harden. Like a right foot strain. He's only expected to miss about a month. And then at the same time, you got Cam Johnson on the Suns, who, has a torn meniscus. I mean, we know sometimes you don't really recover until like maybe the next season. So, I mean, I think we probably could both agree that James Harden is a better player than Cam Johnson. But I think maybe like the duration is a little different. Like, 1 month without James Harden or maybe a whole season without Cam Johnson, who was just getting inserted in that starting lineup after, Jay Crowder basically has walked out on the Suns. I guess which do you think maybe is like a worse, almost the worst injury in this moment, I guess, like for either of these teams moving forward?
So short term, I think it's actually a positive for the Sixers. Because I just look at this being pretty much the same roster they had last season before they made the trade with Ben Simmons for James Harden, where we had our talk, earlier this year, our first video together, where it was Embiid, prime candidate for the MVP. So I think the Sixers have this opportunity to kind of find that identity again, where Embiid is taking over. They're back to being top three, top four defense in the league. Excuse me, and just dominating like they were early last season, throughout the whole Ben Simmons drama and just navigating that. So I think it's, for better lack of wording, kind of a blessing in disguise for the Sixers. Just getting a chance to go back to that style of play that they had last year. But that begs the question, right? How are they going to reintegrate James Harden into the roster or into the lineup when he gets back, right? A month from now, 6 weeks from now. I think that's what they were saying, 4 to 6 weeks. So it might be a curse in the long term for them, because if they get into a groove, what's going to happen, when James Harden comes back? So in the short term, I definitely do think the Sixers are better off. But I mean, as far as the Suns go, if they can mend the relationship with Jay Crowder, I don't think they'll miss a beat. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Cam's going to be out. Like you said, it takes probably about a year or so for a player to come back to the level that he was playing at, which Cam was just getting hot. I think his first game, he was averaging 5 points a game, and then he slowly went up to 12 points a game. And then this last game, before he got hurt, he was at, I think, 27, 29 points, and he's a deadly 3-point shooter. So long term, if the Suns do not find a way to bring Jay Crowder back or find a replacement, whether that's trading Jay Crowder and another player to fill in Cam's role, I think the Suns are going to have more of that hiccup. Because right now, the last game, they started, Torrey Craig, which I love Torrey Craig's defense, but that's all he is. He's just that hustle player that's going to play defense on you. He's not going to get you more than maybe 3-4 points a game.
Yeah, I think in terms of short term, it really could be a benefit, like you said, for the 76ers. I mean, last year, that's kind of before Harden is kind of when we saw Embiid maybe playing like the best version of himself. And even though like the second half of the year he was still playing like, one of the best players in the league, I think people started to like stop giving him maybe the spotlight like that. And maybe his play even took a dip down from what his peak play was last season because you had to integrate Harden into the mix as well. So, and maybe long term, it could almost be similar to last year where it's like, all right, now we're familiar a little bit without him, so now we got to bring him in again mid-season, try and get the groove again. I will say, though, like, Harden early in the season, I mean, first few games, he did look, in shape. He looked probably like the most in shape he's been in probably like 4 or 5 years, probably since like his MVP season. So, I mean, if he's able to like keep contributing at that level, then maybe it could be a different story from last year. But I think long term, this in terms of the Suns with Cam Johnson, I think it's a huge loss. Not only just because Cam Johnson's their young player, and like he's been inserted in the starting lineup now in that Jay Crowder role, but it's like, okay, I don't really know if Jay Crowder's going to come back. It seems like they haven't really made amends even since like the news with Cam Johnson broke. And now you're without Cam Johnson, and you just look at the depth of this team, and it just doesn't scream out like anything to you. Like obviously Paul, Booker, and Ayton and Bridges, even like that's kind of the big four in there. But what do you have off the bench? Like, and one of these guys that's probably a weaker, bench player, anyways, like Torrey Craig, like you said, or if it's, if I don't even know what they'd maybe elect to do, like Landry Shamet or Damian Lee or whoever they start alongside that, like long term, like if Monty Williams makes adjustments closer to playoff time, okay, that's gonna weaken the bench too. So it's like, I don't know. I think personally, like they're probably gonna be a team, even though they're playing still pretty well right now. I feel like they're a team that's gonna have to make a move at the deadline. Like we said, Jay Crowder clearly doesn't want to play there. I think you got to move him for something, get something back for him. And maybe, who knows, like I still think a guy out there like Kemba Walker, right? Like with how weak that Phoenix Suns bench is, in my opinion, I don't see why he couldn't contribute as like a sixth man on that team. I mean, he could provide scoring, another playmaker. I don't know. I just feel like it kind of just weakens their rotation a little bit, and it makes me a little bit more skeptical about them, like especially if this is like a season-long thing and Cam Johnson can't return.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like a player like Kemba Walker, like you mentioned, a play creator, and when Kemba's healthy, that's we saw him. He's still a guy that can get his buckets, right? But I think the thing with the Suns, they got to make a trade. They have no option. They have to trade Jay Crowder now, and they might get 50 cents on the dollar, but they have to find somebody that can fill in at least 50% of Cam Johnson's productivity, because I don't think Torrey Craig can do it. I mean, sure, you can bring in guys like you mentioned, like Lee off the bench, put him in the starting unit, but that just makes your bench so much more weaker, right? And the Suns aren't as deep as they were in years past, especially when they made it to the finals a couple years back. So I think they definitely either have to make a way to find amends with Jay Crowder, which I totally think that's out of the table, right? Because Jay Crowder wanted to be out the moment that he saw he wasn't going to start, and now he can kind of be like, oh, well, you're only bringing me back in because Cam's out. Now you need me, right? So I do think that relationship is tarnished, but maybe they can find a way to make it work, at least temporary. Maybe, sell him on the idea that, like, hey, you play, you show teams you still got it, you're still productive. We can find a trade partner for you, but they got to find something, because if not, I still think they're a top 4 team in the West, even with Cam's injury. But in the playoffs, if we just hypothetically say that Cam's out all season, or simply put, he's just not the player that he's been so far, right? That we've seen that growth year over year. I don't know if they get past the second round with how deep the West is, meeting up with somebody with the Clippers, Denver, excuse me, Utah even. We'll talk about Utah a little bit later, but, teams out there in the West is something else right now. And I don't think they could get past the second round with how thin they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, it could be another second round exit for them if they don't make adjustments. Speaking of, who knocked them out last year in the second round of the playoffs, Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, they've been playing a little better recently. Luka has a 9-game, 30-point streak to start the season, which is the second longest in NBA history. I believe Wilt Chamberlain was number 1. He did that 23 straight games in the season. He averaged 50 points a game. And I think actually, in order for him to actually, break that record, the first day that he can drop below 30 points in a game will be exactly a month from the day that this drops. So this is most likely going to drop on November 9th. So on December 9th, that's the first time he can drop below 30 points. But the point is, I mean, he's currently by far above everyone in the scoring race so far this year. I guess just to ask you, like, what do you make of what Luka has done so far this season? I mean, I think people thought maybe the Mavericks would kind of slip without Brunson this year, but, Luka still has them going.
And I don't know if you saw, but I just put it on the paper. Luka's the MVP. Like, the conversation is over. Whatever happens, it's over now, because
it's kind of hard
I used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote it in a pencil, but I used to say that the Hawks, when they made the trade for Luka and Trae Young, right, that it was a pretty even trade. I always said that Luka was the better player, but that Trae Young is still a preliminary all-star, great player, great shooter. What he's been doing this year, man, I was wrong. The Mavericks, they just straight up finessed the Hawks on that trade, and just the way that he's been able to keep his team competitive. The stats he's putting up is insane. Like you mentioned, those numbers, we haven't seen them in 50 years, since Wilt was playing.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how long he can keep it up, but he's definitely still going to be, scoring champ. He's going to be up there in the assist game, in the rebounding game. His game is just so solid. And he's got, a lot of players talk about this, that killer instinct, that Kobe mentality. Luka's got it, because he's keeping the Mavs afloat. And if the Mavs, are starting to slow down a little bit, he just kickstarts it to a whole nother level and just takes over, whether it's scoring, passing, just facilitating on the floor. Luka's something else, man. He's probably top 3 player in the NBA right now, and probably top 1, honestly.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely something else. We saw his I guess, like, Kobe mentality, Mamba mentality last year in the playoffs when he took offense to the Luka special comments and then, got in the Suns' faces. But, yeah, I just think, before the season, even though, like, I have been critical of Luka, like, in the past, maybe in certain other areas, maybe I thought people maybe thought he was kind of hyping him up too much early on. Not that he hasn't been a great player, just like, sometimes people, love to get on the hype train a little bit too much. And, now I think it's to a point where it's like, I don't know if there's really too much, because he has an argument as maybe like the best player in the league, or at least one of, like you said, top 3, maybe even number 1 or something like that. Like, it's just hard to kind of deny that. And I feel like when you're up there, like, there kind of is really no limit, no ceiling for that. Before the season, though, I did have him as my MVP pick. I thought, like, this is the season that Luka's going to get it. And right now, I mean, outside of maybe like Giannis, just because the Bucks have been so dominant, I don't know if really anyone else is in that category. I mean, maybe Donovan Mitchell's played good too. Obviously, Jokic has played good too. Of course, voters fatigue. But I don't know. I mean, I just think, like, Luka, it looks like this is probably like his season. I don't know if it's going to be a breakthrough season as for the team, but for him as an individual, this even looks like a breakthrough season, which is impressive because, I mean, how much better, how much more impressive can his stats get? You know what I mean?
It's interesting to see how these European guys, man, the moment they start taking their body serious, they become something else, right? Like, we had Giannis when he came into the league. He was a twig, skinny little dude. He starts hitting the weight room. I mean, he always brought up, great production. You always saw it in him. But the moment he started hitting the weight room, just becomes a dominant force. Jokic starts taking his eating habits a little bit better, right? Drops some weight, boom, MVP. Luka dropped some weight this season, looks in way better shape. I don't know if you saw the photos that came out right before Eurobasket this summer, where they're like, "Oh yeah, Luka's going to be a problem. He's in better shape," and that's obviously producing on the floor right now. So it's interesting to me just to see how these guys have the fundamentals, but the moment they take their bodies even more serious, they just go a whole other level. Like I said, John is joking now, Luka.
It's an international game as well now. I mean, like, before the season, I think NBA.com, like, their top 4 for the MVP ladder, I don't remember the specific order, but I know Luka was up there. I know Jokic was up there. Giannis and Embiid. I mean, as the top 4 candidates, all those guys are international players. So it just goes to show, I guess, like, the direction of the league as well. But if you want, though, we can talk about another team that's been heating up lately. Of course, they did lose their most recent game, but they just came off an 8-game winning streak, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. As I mentioned in terms of MVP candidates earlier, like, Donovan Mitchell has looked insane. Darius Garland came back recently. They've beaten the Eastern Conference champion Celtics twice now, both in overtime. But I mean, what do you make of the Cavs? What do you make of the Donovan Mitchell addition? And just like your thoughts about like the whole team and how they've kind of put it together pretty early so far.
I think that's the key word you said, pretty early. I love the trade when it went down, because Donovan Mitchell just fits that perfect role that the Cavs were missing, right? Obviously, an upgrade over Colin Sexton. I honestly thought that the Cavs should have found a way to keep Lauri Markkanen. I love his game, which I know we'll talk about him a little bit here. But when the trade went down, I loved it. I thought they'd probably be about 2-3 years down the line for them being a legit contender. But just what I've seen, in their first 10 or so games, I don't know who can beat them in the 7-game series right now. You have rim protectors in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. You got shooters in Mitchell, DG. You got perfect roster fluidity between this team. I always thought, like I said, a couple years down the line, but just the way that they've been playing, Donovan Mitchell has taken that MVP step potentially. Like you mentioned, without a doubt, at least a top 10 player. He's getting, I think, a career high in assists is what he's averaging now, which is, it's kind of funny how that works out because from what I've seen, I haven't watched every Cleveland game, but he's getting a lot of passes down to Jared Allen. And it's funny that Jared Allen is producing a lot more than Rudy Gobert was on the offensive end, right? When they're playing that similar traditional big 5 center role where they're just there for defense, protect the paint, shot block, make it hard for the shooter. So it's funny to see that he's producing at that high level with the same type of player as Gobert. But like I said, I think the key word for it was early, how seamless it has all fit in for the Cavs. I probably had Boston coming out of the East now, but if Cleveland stays in this same trajectory that they've been doing and just getting better, building that better chemistry, I don't think any team in the East can stop them from coming out of the East.
Yeah, I think the thing that helps for Donovan Mitchell is I think he also likes the fact that Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, they're probably more athletic big men as well than Rudy Gobert is, at least I would say so. And playing above the rim, that's something that Donovan Mitchell loves to do. So other players that also play with similar tendencies to him, I think he might like playing with that personally better. But he's just been on another level. I went to the Bulls game when the Bulls played the Cavs earlier this year. It was our home opener. And that was the only game of the season where I thought okay, the Bulls just don't stand a chance against this team. They got destroyed. I think they lost by 32. And I think that's the thing is and people thought I was crazy before the season too. I got a lot of backlash, and I'm not going to say it's a done deal because it is really early in the season, but I had IRL friends, I had Twitter people, all talking to me, and they thought I was crazy because before the season I thought the Cavs were coming out of the East. That was my pick, but before the season I just feel like you got
trade though, right? After the trade though, right?
Yes, yeah, but before the season even started, I just personally think they're coming out of the East. I mean, you look at their team with multiple rim protectors like Mobley and Allen. Mobley's a little bit more versatile. You got Kevin Love, Dean Wade, Osman. All of them can provide a little bit of 3-and-D and veteran experience too. I mean, 2 of those guys have finals experience. Donovan Mitchell, who is starting to look like a bona fide superstar at this point, and he's kind of growing into that complete label. I think people were going to label him all-star or star before this. I think now he's kind of taking the jump to superstar, and he's going to solidify it by midway through the season. And then Darius Garland, I mean, seemed like people, in the few games in this win streak where he was out, people kind of forgot oh yeah, Darius Garland's on this team too. And he came back and he didn't miss a beat in that game against Boston. He looked great the other night too. But this team is just insane. They're not even 100% yet. Ricky Rubio played great for the Cavs last year, and he's going to come back soon. Then you got another veteran in Robin Lopez, and then you got Karis LeVert and Isaac Okoro. There's just so many guys on this team, and I think all of them in a way have something to prove. And for the most part, they're a young team too. So those young teams, they're not going to take many days off. They're always going to be hungry. It's a little bit different than these older teams you see doing load management or resting on back-to-back games and stuff like that. Maybe not playing as much defense or anything like that. I think this team isn't going to fall into that little hole. And I don't know. Right now, like they just look like you said. It looks hard to, I guess, pick anyone against them in a 7-game series from what we've seen so far. Like I said, it's a long season, but if they keep this up, I think they're definitely going to be one of the best teams in the NBA.
And they're going to be it for years to come, right? Like I said, I thought they were a few years out from it clicking this well, but I mean, apart from Mitchell, I think Jared Allen is the second oldest after Mitchell when we talk about their starting core, right? I think he's 22, 23, so they're going to be a problem for years to come out east, right? And there's no reason that you don't think they're going to keep the core together. If they're contender year out year in, why wouldn't they keep it together? So if I'm out east, which as you know I'm a Nugget fan, but if I'm out east, I'd be worried about the Cavs. They're going to be a problem for years to come, and they're already here. I'm confident to say that they're already here. I'm pretty sure they're going to keep it up all season. Top 2, top 3 seed in the East at worst.
Yeah, they do worry me as a Bulls fan.
Mhm.
But yeah, we can move on. We could put some shine a little bit on Donovan Mitchell's former team, the Utah Jazz, who have also been very impressive to start the year. Probably these are the two, I guess, biggest surprises from most people's opinions this early in the season. I mean, the Jazz, everyone said like they're going to be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes before the season started for like the number 1 pick, and right now they're 9-3, I believe, and they're number 1 in the Western Conference. What do you make of the Jazz?
So if I'm a Jazz fan, I'm heartbroken. I'm conflicted as to what I want the team to do, right? Because I definitely do think that the front office wants to get a top pick. Obviously, this is the best prospect since LeBron James, even better than LeBron James, according to some analysts. So you definitely want a shot at him. There's no question about it. But seeing just the productivity that the Jazz have been playing with, man. Of course you got your vet and Mike Conley, and then you're full with young, productive young guys. You got Jay Vondo out there, you got Laurie Markkinen, you got Colin Sexton, who I thought was overrated. When they made the trade with Donovan Mitchell, I was like, man, the fact that the Cavs were able to get off him, and get Mitchell back. But no, he's been producing for them, and if I'm a Jazz fan, I want them to keep it up as long as they can, right? I know the front office is probably good later on going to make trades. We're probably going to see Mike Conley trade at the trade deadline for a bona fide contender. But as it is, as a Jazz fan, I would tell them, hey, we have a core that we can grow on. We can grow on this core. We don't have to rebuild. We don't have to do a full punt and come back, 3-4 years down the line after we get a high draft pick. It's time to just kind of tweak the team around a little bit. And I don't know if it's just like a relief for the Jazz organization that they're not playing with that. I don't know if I want to say toxic relationship between Mitchell and Gobert that was always rumored out there, right? Whose team is it? Is it Donovan's team? Is it Rudy's team? They're both max level players. But it feels just like a fresh air for the Jazz, man, for Jazz Nation. And if I'm a Jazz fan, like I said, I want them to keep it going. Keep trying to win games, continue to develop their young guys. But I think it's just a matter of time before Danny punts it and trades players. Whether that's Mondo, Clarkson, Mike Conley. I just think that's what the front office and probably ownership is. We're in the Vic sweepstakes. That's what we want. But as a Jazz fan, I want them to win.
Yeah, I think the Jazz are interesting for the simple fact where it's like, I mean, even Markkinen said it, I believe, today when he was talking with Sham Charania. But he said, like how they all have something to prove in a way. Like that's kind of the mentality of the team. But it's so interesting because usually when you see, usually when you hear like, okay, something to prove, you might hear it from the individual. Like, okay, I have something to prove. Or like maybe a couple of us, like each think we have something to prove. Like almost everyone buys into the mentality that they have something to prove on this team, and yet none of them are being like selfish in a way. Like they're not like, okay, I'm taking all the shots, or like this is my team or anything. Like you can, this is just a well-rounded team. And I mean, like I guess if you had to pinpoint like a couple guys like Markkinen and Clarkson, like those have probably been the primary two guys so far this season. I mean, Conley's been great, Malik Beasley, Kelly Olynyk has kind of, I guess, refound his career in a way. I know he's had some great moments over the past few years, but probably not in like high quality teams per se. So I mean, it's just like in Colin Sexton as well, like you said, Jared Vanderbilt. So it's like just a lot of guys too even the head coach, Will Hardy, right? Like, he probably felt like he had something to prove. I mean, he was almost like an understudy for several years, over there, like, with Boston, and now, like, he gets a chance to shine as well in a situation that basically everyone thought they were going to tank. I personally feel like, though, I really don't mind them contending, because if you think about it, there's only been 6 current teams that have never had the first overall pick in the draft, and that is, one of them is the Utah Jazz, right? So if they were to, like, go all in and get Wembanyama, like, they had a terrible season, and what are the odds that they actually get the first overall pick? Maybe not. I mean, they could be as low as 6, even if they have, like, the worst record in the league, because, like, the top 3, I believe, all get the same odds, or 5th or something like that. So maybe they wouldn't get Wembanyama or even, like, Scoot Henderson or something like that. But a lot of these guys, I think they're kind of trying to build up their value a little bit, and maybe Danny Ainge might move them later on down the line. Maybe get in more assets, make the team even better. Like, who knows? But, like, if you think about some of the best Jazz players ever, like, I mean, Karl Malone, that was a draft pick by Utah. John Stockton, draft pick by Utah. Pete Maravich, they traded for him. Darren Williams, drafted by Utah. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, both drafted by your Nuggets, traded to Utah. Like, it's not like they're going to get someone in free agency, and clearly they haven't gotten any of those guys by a high draft pick, except, like, Darren Williams, if you count him, because he was, like, the 3rd pick. Again, not even a top 2 pick. So, I don't know. I feel like, personally, I think that they should keep it going, just like you said. And they are probably, I would say, like, other than, obviously, my own team, like, they're probably the other team that, everyone's kind of, like, looking at. It's like, you know what? Like, they're kind of interesting. Like, it's just, like, you kind of want to see them succeed, which is kind of crazy because of the perception that Utah fans have gotten over the past few years. And it's like, you want this team to succeed. It just seems bizarre, but I guess that's kind of, like, where we are right now.
You got to keep in mind, too, that they have, 10 draft picks coming up in the next few years. They got 4 for, I think it was 4 for Donovan and 5 for Rudy, right? They have, and their own picks, so they have 10 draft picks in the next few years.
Right.
I don't know how many of those can cash, like, to actually develop at least a preliminary all-star, or, at least a very solid role player. But they do have very good odds to just continue to build their team. Like I said, man, if I'm a Jazz fan, I want them to keep this going. And even just as an NBA fan, I've been catching their games on League Pass, and they're a fun team to watch. They share the ball. They play fast. They play fast paced. They're just a good team to watch, and it's like a nice fresh air. Just to see how they're doing. But everybody knows, there's a prize that everybody wants. All 30 teams want them, and one team is going to win the jackpot this upcoming draft. And I think that's where your Houston Rockets, your Jazz, quote unquote, right? At least Jazz ownership wants to get to. The Kings, all these lower level teams want to get to him for Wembanyama. But I don't know. I would personally love the Jazz to just keep it rolling, make some trades, be a bona fide playoff team. Tell your fan base, hey, we didn't do a full rebuild. Yes, we traded our 2 top stars, but we still are putting a competitive team out there. We have assets to go bring in somebody, because you're right. They're kind of like my Nuggets, whose biggest signing in free agency was Paul Millsap, a few years back, and at the latter end of his career. Sure, he had just came off a all defensive team and all-star appearance, with the Hawks, but Paul was at the latter end of his career, and that's probably in the same boat that Utah's going to be in, as far as when we talk about a big free agent signing. But they have assets, they have draft picks, young players that they can continue to trade and just continue to build a contender. I don't think they're that far off. Lauri Markkanen came into the league at 6'10". He's 7'2" now. His game is just amazing. He's probably going to make that leap. If they're continuing to be a top 5 seed by the time All-Star season comes around, there's no question he's going to be an All-Star this year. There's no question. Obviously, that depends on how they go, but they need to continue to build on what they've done these first 12 or so games.
That's all facts. I couldn't have said it even better myself. But we could stick on the topic of your Nuggets. Obviously, Jamal Murray has made his return this season after he got hurt about a year and a half ago now. But so far this season, the first couple of games, he was a little bit like kind of finding his groove, a little inconsistent. Now he's had about 6 or 7 games in a row now where maybe he hasn't put up like his numbers he did in the bubble playoffs or anything like that, but he's playing efficiently, and I think he's kind of getting back into the swing of things. I think one thing about Jamal Murray too is that even if he's not putting up the crazy numbers in the regular season, he's always going to elevate his game in the playoffs. I think it's like a little bit like even a former Nugget like Chauncey Billups in a way. But I guess like not only just like Murray, but also what you've seen from like MPJ specifically. I know he's had a couple games where he's played well, and obviously, Jokic, the reigning back-to-back MVP, potentially could be in the running for a third straight this year, which would put him in elite company. What do you make of your Denver Nuggets right now?
So the first couple of games, like you said, Jamal struggled, and he even said so himself. I believe he called it kind of like his rookie season, where the game, it was just moving too fast for him. He just had to find a way to slow down the game to get back to being able to make the proper reads, find the open man. And we've seen that. I think the if you want to call it, the switch turned on him against the Lakers, where the Nuggets stopped the Los Angeles Lakers right in LA and gave the Lakers that first win. I believe it was in the third quarter, halfway through, where Jamal started to get that look in his eyes, right? Like we said earlier, the Mamba mentality. He's always been a player that he can just take over. He's just that competitive drive that he has, right? That just a select few players have, that mentality. And I think that's where it started to take effect, because after that, they faced the Thunder, same thing. He started to take over. Then they had, these last couple of games with the Spurs. First game on Saturday was a blowout win, but it was all in part with how Jamal produced. But I think the biggest thing for Jamal right now, apart from productivity or just disregard productivity, is letting the game come to him, getting himself more comfortable in his body. We've slowly seen it that he is willing to take a hit. Because the first few games, just watching them, right, he was very cautious. There were still times where you see him kind of question if he should dive for the ball, which I get it, right? Coming back off of an ACL injury, for a guy that, for the most part, for his career has been relatively healthy, that's a big ask, right? But just being a Nugget fan and watching his games, I think the most important thing is for him and Jokic to get back to that two-man connection that they had in the bubble, which we ironically saw that yesterday. I don't know if you caught the game or even caught the highlights. Just the way that Jokic and Jamal are always in the same page. It's like they're connected in one. Literally, they just have one mind between the two of them, man. Like Jokic knows if he's going to set the screen, if Jamal's going to, wave him off, or if Jokic needs to slip. Just the way these two are in tune, it's amazing. So I think that's the biggest priority for Jamal, And then to the question about MPJ, one of the things that I tweeted earlier this week is we've had good games from Jamal, good games from MPJ, but we haven't had them have good games together. Mm-hmm. I think that's the next step for just the Nuggets as a whole, is having them have good games together. Because when Jamal's on, you can kind of see MPJ knows that he's that third option, right? That he's got the MVP, back-to-back MVP. He's got a player that should be an all-star, maybe not this year, but, down the line. And, himself, MPJ is a max level player. But really what I've seen from MPJ is growth. He's been a lot more mature just from what I've seen him talk to media and things like that. His answers. He didn't finish the game yesterday against the Spurs. Michael Malone opted to have Bruce Brown in there for defense, which makes sense. MPJ is obviously still a liability on defense. But to that subject, he's trying. Like, you can see him out there trying. He's not just getting beat and accepting that he got beat off the dribble. He's trying to get back into the defensive rotations. I think it's just good to see him healthy. He did miss that one game with what he called back spasms, that his back spasmed a little bit. He said it was totally unrelated to his previous injuries, which, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if that's possible or not, but he knows his body better than anybody else. And he came back the next game after that missed game and continued to produce. If he can be that 15 to 20 point per game scorer, and Jamal get to that 20 plus point a game, and you got the back-to-back MVP, not regardless of me being a Nugget fan, I don't know how you can stop it when you have such offensive capacity, and then you got KCP and Bruce Brown when you need to go defensive route, and AG still a great defender. They're a problem. And like I said, regardless of my Nuggets fandom and things like that, three guys with, those capable defenders, watch out.
Yeah, I think personally, so, I guess starting with MPJ, who also, should, I guess, be noted, like, with the injuries, like, last year. But, I think he's, hasn't really missed a beat, like, coming back. I will say I do kind of, like, want him maybe to, like, I guess, develop more as, like, a passer, per se. I know, like, he gets enough touches, I think, where he could maybe incorporate, a few other guys as well. But, I mean, he still looked like he hasn't really missed a beat in terms of his efficiency. And like you said, like, talking about his maturity as well, I think that could go a long way, too, as they, they're looking forward to coming into, like, probably their first playoff appearance together, where all of them are kind of at a high level. I would probably say, like, MPJ was kind of still finding his groove, like, in the bubble. We knew what Murray was, and we knew what Jokic was, obviously. But, like, with Jamal Murray, too, I mean, I think personally for me, it's just important about, kind of, like, as well, just like MPJ, getting a groove, but also, in the playoffs, he's going to step it up to another level. I did see, like, the end of that Spurs game the other day. Obviously, there were 15 games on, so I was trying to catch as much of every game as I could, while also trying to watch, like, the whole Bulls game as well, because that's my team. And, at the end of the game, like, it was basically all, like, Murray and Jokic, like, from that point on. And that's kind of what you're probably going to see late in games, like late in crucial games, whether it's, like, at the end of the season for, like, seeding purposes, or if it is, like, in the playoffs in, like, April, May, potentially June as well. But, I mean, this trio, I mean, I could talk about Jokic all day, really, but this trio, I think people forget that not last year, obviously, but the year before, their offensive rating was well and above everyone else, every other three-man trio in the whole league. So even though, like, people are going to be questionable about, like, where's their defense? Well, now you add guys like KCP to the mix, who's a champion. You add Bruce Brown to the mix. You add Aaron Gordon to the mix. Like, I think it's a little bit different. Now these guys can almost, like, take over that load of things, whereas you also have one of the best offensive trios in the whole association. And in the playoffs, like, they're all going to elevate as well. I think before the season I had the Nuggets, obviously a little bit questioned, like, with everyone's return, but I think the Clippers and the Warriors, those are probably the two teams that everyone was investing in before the season. But I feel like the Nuggets are probably the next team, and there's a lot of good teams out there, like the Suns, the Blazers, which, I mean, those are two teams that have been getting a lot of coverage lately, but, the Nuggets are tied with those two teams, like, in the records right now, like, for second in the Western Conference. Like, I feel like people don't recognize that either. Like, everyone's talking about, like, the Suns are still doing it. Everyone's talking about the Blazers, like, comeback season, but, like, what about the Nuggets, right? Like, not enough people are giving them credit. I wonder if part of that is just because, like, Jokic did win MVP the last 2 years, and it's like people are kind of sick of him or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like this is a team you cannot count out. Like I said, I think they're at least a top 3 team in the Western Conference when it's all said and done, and they have, potential to make this, this could be a contending team by the end of the season. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did find themselves in the finals and won it all. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And if you recall, one of the things that we talked about in our last video was the front office and the questionable moves that, Tim Connolly has made, as well as the 76ers when we talked about that video. One of the things, if you recall, I don't know if you do or not, but I told you that the Nuggets had to find a way to get back to a roster similar to the bubble team. And I think that's what they did this offseason, right? Calvin Booth, mad props to him. He brought in defenders. Aaron Gordon, like we talked about last time, was that Jeremy Grant role, so we had that there. But then you bring in KCP, who's your Gary Harris, right, from that bubble run. And then Bruce Brown is your Torrey Craig. But they're higher players, right? Because KCP and Gary Harris, sure, at his prime, Gary Harris was that traditional 3-and-D guy that you loved on your team. I love myself some Gary Harris. But injuries really derailed his career. Hoping he gets back here with the Magic soon. And then you guys got Dougie McBuckets, right, from that trade, I recall. But KCP's that Gary Harris role, right? That capable defender, that 3-and-D guy. And like Jokic said himself, he loves playing with KCP because KCP's always at that right spot. And then you got Bruce Brown, who's a more capable Torrey Craig, and the reason why I bring Torrey Craig is because of that bubble run, who was a better defender and is definitely way more capable on the offensive end. So I, as a Nugget fan, I'm happy with where they're at. I just think their biggest thing, regardless of record, for the first half of the season, because obviously when you start talking about playoff seedings, that's going to be very important, especially for specific matchups. But I think the first half of the season is just finding their identity, getting Jokic and Jamal back to being on the same page, which, these last couple games looks like they have been. Hopefully they keep that up. And then just having MPJ be that third option, and the way that Michael Malone has actually staggered him with the bench, I think it's perfect. Because the Nuggets, they needed a starter with them out on the field at all time, and then with them staggering MPJ with the bench and Bones Highland, I think that's the perfect combination. And then when he's needed to be with the offensive end on the starting unit, he's capable.
And staying healthy too. I know you mentioned like MPJ with, missed one game with the back spasms, not really much of anything, but you never know. And then even when your Nuggets played my Bulls in preseason, like, Jamal Murray had that one scare. Like, I don't know if you remember that, like, where he, like, came down weird. Like, just staying healthy for the most part, and this team is still going to be, one of the, I would say, probably top 5 teams in the NBA, especially with a player of Jokic's caliber, who you could even, we just talked about Luka being the argument for best in the world, you could still make an argument that Jokic is the best player in the world, too. But yeah, we can move on though. We can talk about some of these recent games that have been kind of insane lately. There's been a lot of buzzer beaters going on lately. I don't know what is up in the NBA. You had De'Aaron Fox against the Orlando Magic for a walk-off game winner. You had Jeremy Grant against the Phoenix Suns. You had Matt Ryan against New Orleans. Granted, that wasn't a game winner, but that was a buzzer beater, forced OT for the Lakers. And then the other night, you had Josh Hart against Miami, so the second one for Portland. I guess, like, do you think there's any that were, like, most exciting for you, or, like, any moment in particular that was most exciting over the past week?
So I think my favorite one was probably the De'Aaron Fox game winner. From them committing a turnover that tied the game up, and then just the way that he barely crosses the half court, he's still at the logo land and just pulls up confidently and hits it. And De'Aaron Fox has been a little bit of a up and down shooter, right, streaky throughout his career, but that was a great shot. That reminds me of and I'm not trying not to bring up the Nuggets too much on this because it's not a Nugget video, but when Gary Harris had the game winner over Russell Westbrook, on that pass from Joker from out of bounds, and it just reminds me of that excitement and just the confidence that the player had to hit it. Because if we talk about like the Jeremy Grant play, right, and his buzzer beater, it was out of a inbound play, right? So they drew it up. I don't know if Chauncey Billups drew it up specifically for Jeremy Grant or if that was your backup play, but De'Aaron Fox was just so much more natural. I didn't have a chance to see the Josh Hart one, so I can't really comment on that one. The Matt Ryan, I think that was good for Lakers end, just to see that they have a guy that can somewhat shoot, because the Lakers need a shooter, consistent shooters, which they don't have. They need to make a trade, obviously, for Buddy Hield, Turner, that's rumored out there, which I don't know if that would help them enough to be a playoff contention team. But as far as the Lakers buzzer beater goes to send it into overtime, I think it was just good for them to see that they have someone who can shoot and give them that excitement of a potential game winner, if we want to call it like that, for his buzzer beater.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, I guess, too much to add. I mean, I did see both the Fox one and the Jeremy Grant one live. I probably won't give as much. I feel like I need to give credit to Portland just because there was 2 of them from them. But I probably won't touch much on the Jeremy Grant one just because I know Phoenix Suns fans were salty that like he traveled to the moon like to take that shot. The Matt Ryan one was nice, although obviously it wasn't necessarily a game winner. I'll go with like I feel like the Josh Hart one was probably the coolest, just because Portland was down. They had no business really winning that game. They were down, I think, like 10 with like 3.5 minutes left. I'm like, all right, it's over. Then, like the blink of an eye, they tied the game, and then they really, all they could do is just keep tying it. Like Miami kept scoring, they drew fouls and everything like that. And then, at the end, they kind of had the lead, and then I think Max Strus comes down, makes a 3, and it was an interesting move because Chauncey Billups didn't call a timeout at all, and he said, all right, let's just play. And I think the Heat were kind of confused by that. And everyone's, they're double teaming Dame because, like, dude, it's Dame. He's one of the most clutch players in the league. He's obviously going to take the shot. But what you've seen from Dame this year, and it's most interesting, and I think this has almost solidified it. Like, you saw it with Anthony Simons. I believe it was I forget what game it was. Early in the season. It was against Phoenix. Yeah, Anthony Simons hit probably the biggest shot. Yeah, and he was going off down the stretch. Then you saw Jeremy Grant, who, obviously the shot against the Suns, but they gave him the play at the end against the Lakers. And now you saw Josh Hart, take this shot, who hasn't really shot entirely great so far this year from three, but and been much of an offensive threat per se. But I mean, he hit the shot, and I think that's the interesting thing about this whole Portland team per se is that, there's more trust in the team. You can see it. I mean, Nurkic the other day in the Phoenix game too, he took a three with less than a minute left in the game. If Nurkic did that like in 3 seasons ago, he'd get yanked, right?
Mhm.
So that was why that was probably the coolest one for me, because it's almost like identifying a team more so than it has in the past. But yeah.
And on that subject, man, big ups to Chauncey Billups, man. Big props to him.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly thought he was a little bit over his head last season with just how Portland played last year. It found kind of bad vibes was around that team. Granted, their best player, Damian Lillard, was, injured throughout the season. So they just had some bad vibes feelings, man. And honestly, I thought he was probably going to be one of those, we could call it casualties of, great point guards that don't necessarily always produce to being a great coach. Derek Fisher, we saw him not have the best seasons as a coach. Steve Nash, Steve Nash is a little bit of a different subject because there's a whole bunch of toxicity and drama with the Nets. But, I thought that CD would be one of those, casualties of a point guard that, sure was a great floor general as a player, but maybe doesn't, transfer over as a coach, as a head coach. But the way he has Portland playing right now, and I said this with Utah, but it also just feels like, fresh air for that fan base, for that organization, which is ironic because obviously the Blazers and the Jazz are in the same division as the Nuggets, but just being on the outside in, just seeing the vibes and the energy that these players are playing with in these organizations, it just feels like a nice sigh of relief, right, for it, which is great on the competitive end. So again, big props to Chauncey Billups, man. He's got them playing very well. Helps to have Dame back. But, just got the team believing in him and believing in their system.
Yeah, definitely an early season coach of the year candidate, at least in my books too. But yeah, if you want, we can move on to the final segment, which is the NBA 20 questions game, if you want to hop right into it. Yeah, so I'll explain how it goes for anyone who's new, hasn't watched before. So basically, my man Willy is going to ask me 20 questions. All of them could be yes or no questions. Now, after every question that you ask me regarding an NBA-related thing, could be a current player, former player, current coach, former coach, a team, anything like that. After you ask me every individual question, you're allowed one guess after each question. So, like, you ask me, like, is it a current player? And then I say yes. Then you could guess an actual player. You get one guess after that, and it doesn't count toward your question guess. Only the yes or no questions that you ask me that aren't like straight up guesses count towards that, and you get more points for using less questions. Hopefully that makes sense. There's 3 questions overall, so there's a chance. If you use one question, you get 20 points. If you got it after that one, maximum is 60 points that you could get here. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, so you can ask away on the first one. Again, you have 20 yes or no questions you can ask me, and you're free to guess at least once after every single one if you want, or you could just jump to the next question too.
All right, I guess we'll start out with one of the easiest ones. Is your player or person you're thinking of current player or coach?
He is a current player.
Is this person on the Eastern Conference?
No.
Is it LeBron James?
It is not LeBron James. So that's, again, only 2 questions because you're allowed to play your guess after every single one. But, yeah.
Okay. Is this person a center?
No.
Has this player been an all-star?
No.
Has this person been in the NBA for at least 5 seasons?
So like this being his 5th season, or like this being like his 6 or more seasons?
This being his 5th or more season.
So 5th or more season, then yes.
Is your player currently out due to injury?
Repeat that, sorry.
Is your person currently out due to injury?
No.
Is your person Luka Doncic?
It is not Luka Doncic.
Not Luka.
So you've only used 6 so far, so still not bad.
Okay. Trying to think. Is your player a guard, whether that's shooting guard or point guard?
Yes, he is a guard.
Is your player in the Pacific Division?
No.
Is your person... No, actually, he wouldn't meet the 5 years, so never mind. Is he in the Northwest Division?
Yes.
Is it Colin Sexton?
It is not Colin Sexton.
How many questions are we at?
So you're at 9 right now.
9?
So the next one will be 10, and then if you got it after that, you could get 11 points.
Is it... Okay, is your player Anthony Simons?
Okay, wait. So you just guessed like a player. So you can...
Oh, did I?
You can guess... you can do like another yes or no first before you guess a player.
Is your player on the Portland Trailblazers?
No.
No? Oh.
That helps your guess.
Yeah, that was my guess, right? All right. Is your player on the Denver Nuggets?
No.
Is your player Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
It is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Yeah. So still not bad. You only used 11, so you got 10 points for that. But yeah.
I wanted to get it sooner, but yeah.
Yeah, I like you just rattling through them at the end there. It was funny. All right. So are you ready for the second question?
Yes.
Okay. So you can ask away.
Is your player current player or current person?
No. I mean, like, current isn't still living, yes. Just not, like, within the NBA.
Not in the league currently, okay.
Yeah.
Is your player or coach in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Is this person an all-star or was an all-star?
No.
Did this person spend all of their career on one team?
No.
Did this person play for the Chicago Bulls at one point?
He did not.
Oh, this one's tougher, man. This one's tougher.
Yeah.
There's just so many endless possibilities.
I don't know. I feel like you'll get it by the end. We'll see.
Trying to see. Did this person play from the late 90s to the 2000 range? So like drafted in 96 and retired before 2010, something like that.
So he did. I will say he did play sometime from that stretch, but not necessarily all those years. So kinda, yes.
Was this person on a championship roster?
No.
Did this person transition into coaching after playing?
No.
I don't know, man. This one's a lot tougher. Where we at question wise? How many have I done?
You used 8, so you have 12 more.
Okay. Did this person play for the Dallas Mavericks?
No.
Was this person a guard, whether shooting guard or point guard?
No.
Was this person a forward, small forward, or power forward?
Yes. Yes, he was. I won't say I would classify him personally as like a 3-4 though. But yes, he did play one of those positions at some point. I guess that kind of gives away that he's like a 4 or 5 mainly.
Yeah, he's a 4 or 5. Okay. Is your person Brad Miller?
It is not Brad Miller.
Well, he played for the Bulls. I forgot about that. Yeah, he played for the Bulls.
Yeah.
Okay. Was your person primarily a starter for most of their career?
Yeah, I would say yes. About 70% of his games he started.
Is your person Antonio McDyess?
It is not Antonio McDyess.
Okay. Did your person at one point play for the Lakers?
No.
Is your person Tyler Hansbrough?
It is not Tyler Hansbrough.
That's a name I haven't said in a long time, man.
So you used 13 so far, so you have 7 more that you can ask before you'll be out.
Was your person American? Or was he an international player? So I guess, was he American?
He was not American.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Did you post on Sabonis because of how late he came over?
Wait, are you asking is it Sabonis?
Yeah.
It is not Sabonis.
Not Sabonis, okay. Was your person a 3-point shooter?
No.
Was your person a Mecca Okafor? Or is your person a Mecca Okafor?
It is not a Mecca Okafor. I gotta give you credit. These are some pretty good guesses, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Some names we haven't heard in a long time, too, just thinking about it.
Yeah. So you got 5 more that you can ask.
Did your player play for the Jazz?
He did not play for the Jazz.
rattling my brain, man, trying to think of questions that I can filter this down with. Did your person play for the New York Knicks at one point?
He did not play with the New York Knicks, no.
Not play.
You got...
Did they... What?
Oh, I was going to say, you got 3 more questions you can ask, but you can also make a guess here as well before that if you want.
I think I can filter a little bit more. This person, I think that's a good one. I have a feeling that since you say he did not play for the Knicks, I have a feeling he might have coached the Knicks. But I don't want to use that as a question, but I'm trying to rattle through my head just recent, Knicks coaches that could fit the bill, and I'm not remembering anybody for the Knicks. But was this person a member of one of the defensive teams, whether that's first team or second team all defense?
He was not.
Was this person drafted by the Detroit Pistons?
He was not. So you can make a guess here, and then you have one more question you can ask, and then you can make a final guess, and then you'll be out.
I think I'm going to strike out on this one, man. I don't even think he played for the Knicks, and he wasn't a starter, but I'll just say Lennox Plaza as a guess, but it's not Lennox Plaza.
It is not Lennox Plaza. So you have one more question you can ask, and then you got to give me your final guess.
Was this person a Did your person ever play for the Miami Heat?
He did not ever play for the Miami Heat.
It was my final guess, man. It was going to be Judas Augustius, man, Big Z, but if he played for the Heat. So I guess I'll be my final guess, man. You got me stumped on this one, Big Z, Judas Augustius, but I know it's not him.
So, unfortunately, you know and I know it is not Judas Augustius. I thought you could get it maybe because, well, first of all, I will say with the New York Knicks, I said he didn't play for them because he was drafted by them. He was drafted by the Knicks in 2002, and I thought you might get it.
Mario, it's Big Nene, huh? Big Nene.
It is Nene, yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I should have asked the draft question, and I love Nene, man. Great player, great player.
I was trying to give you a Denver Nugget. I thought, but that is a tough one though. He's kind of forgotten,
See, but you said he wasn't. You thought he was straight up a center, or because when I asked that question, you kind of thought about it about the forward.
So you asked me if he was a small, like a forward, like a small forward or power forward, and I said yes, but I wouldn't classify him as like both. Like I would say, he played power forward sometime, he played center sometime, but like I don't think anyone classifies him as a small forward. You know what I mean? Like,
no. But he didn't play power forward when they had Marcus Camby in there, so makes sense.
Kinda. I didn't want to like lead you in the wrong direction though.
Sure.
All right, so that was a tough one. Unfortunately, you did not get any. But you have one more question, chance to redeem yourself here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you can ask away.
Is your person currently active in the NBA?
He is currently active in the NBA, yes.
Is he a coach?
He is a coach.
Is he a head coach?
He is a head coach.
Is he a coach on the Western Conference?
Yes.
Is this Jason Kidd?
It is not Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd. Okay. Is he a former player?
No.
Is it Michael Malone?
It is not Michael Malone.
Okay. Is he the son of another NBA personnel, another coach or player?
I don't think so. I'm gonna say no on that one. Yeah, I'm gonna say no on that one.
Okay. Is his team currently top 5 in the West?
Let me just double check. No.
Okay. Does he coach in the Northwest Division?
No.
Is it Greg Popovich?
It is Greg Popovich. Yeah. Wow.
Coach
Okay, so that one you only used 8, so that gets you 13 points. Not bad. You made a recovery on that one for sure. So that gives you 23 points because you got 10 for Shea, and then you got 13 for Popovich. Unfortunately, you did not get any for Nene. But yeah, that was a tough one though.
That was a tough one, man.
Yeah. But anyways, so before we go, I gotta ask you though, just quick questions. One NBA player that you do like, and one NBA player that you don't like. It'll be used later in the season. It could be current or former as well.
So one that I do love, it's based off this year, Donovan Mitchell. You know, that's my guy right now. You know, the way he's been producing with Cleveland and everything. That's my guy. That's who I love to watch play, and I'm gonna definitely get it on the league pass to watch myself some more Cavalier games. You know, so that's the guy that I do love a lot right now. I do love me some Donovan Mitchell. And then one guy who it's not personal at all, but just his game. You know, I'm not feeling his game, or I guess just his persona. Well, he had made a little bit of comeback this season, but Malik Beasley, you know, he's made some questionable decisions in his personal life that has kind of rubbed off in the wrong way for me. But that's who I'm like, not really feeling him right now, Malik Beasley.
Okay, well, that is definitely fair. I like how you also picked 2 people that were at some point a member of the Denver Nuggets, even though Mitchell was only like for half a second. But
and Mitchell was never the Nuggets pick, right? I mean, that was always the gamble that Tim Connelly took to try to get OG, but you know, it worked out for the Jazz in a way. They didn't win a championship, but they got a player, and you know, now the Cavs are reaping the benefits.
For sure. But yeah, I think that's basically going to close out the show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. You got any final thoughts before we end it here?
Just watch basketball. As I say, ball is life. Watch basketball. We made it through the off season. Let's enjoy this season.
Facts. Stay tuned till June when we see the Chicago Bulls and Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals.
I respect that. Nuggets in 6.
I don't know when Lonzo Ball comes back. No. But yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.